Hello, West Essex, and welcome back to SportsKnight Radio. I'm your host, Paul Gustafson, joined today, as always, by
Curran Stogie. Doing fine.
Curran.
Doing fine. But that's not what's important right now. I'm not important right now. Paul, tell us who is.
Very special guest today. We are joined by former Lakers Executive Director of Corporate Partnerships and Client Management for 38 years, Mr. Blain Skinner. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for inviting me.
That is none.
So thank you for joining.
Thank you for joining us. Yep. Paul?
Yes. So first thing I got to ask right away, obviously you still are a Lakers fan, having been with the organization for so long. Last night, the Lakers got their rings. Now, you being with the team for 38 years, do you have a ring?
To be determined. As of right now, I don't know. But, boy, that ceremony was fantastic. I really liked how they incorporated the families in giving each of the players their rings and showing each of the family members wishing the players well. And the ring is just spectacular. I'm sure you guys have seen pictures of it. I just posted on my LinkedIn about it. It's really a phenomenal looking ring.
Do you have any of the any of the rings from like when Kobe won 5 times or before that?
Yes, I have each of the 5 rings that Kobe won, plus one from 1987. So I actually have 6 championship rings.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Like Michael Jordan.
Many's Michael Jordan, yes.
Question, joined by Michael Jordan. Now, you're Executive Director of Management. What exactly does that mean? What did you do when you were with the Lakers?
Sure. So that's a very fancy title for basically I was a sponsorship salesman.
Yeah.
So if you watch a Lakers game and you look at the courtside table, there's a rotational sign that always displays advertisers on it. So I would sell that space. In addition to any advertising you would see on the scoreboard, any kiosk in the lobby on game nights, ads in the program, broadcast time, whether it be on radio or TV drop-ins, anything on Lakers.com, anything on Twitter, Instagram, anytime you would see a sponsor, that was an area that we sold.
Growing up, were you a sports fan or even like a Lakers fan?
Oh, yeah. When I was growing up, I was a huge sports fan. The Lakers were by far my favorite professional team. My parents went to Stanford, so I was a huge Stanford fan. During the time, Jim Plunkett was the quarterback of the Stanford team, and they won a Rose Bowl. And I grew up playing soccer, and so I was big fans of all the big soccer players in Europe, because at the time there really wasn't soccer in the United States. But yes, I was an absolute sports nut growing up. Still am today, as a matter of fact. Now that I'm 61.
Did you grow up in Los Angeles?
I grew up in Southern California.
LA?
So I grew up mainly in Huntington Beach and Newport Beach, which is an area that is inside of Orange County, which is just south of LA.
All right. So yeah, you were close to the team. You end up entering the field. Like, how did you get involved with advertising, and how did you get the job with the Lakers?
Sure. So obviously, growing up as a sports nut, my first goal was to be a professional athlete. It became pretty apparent early on that wasn't going to be a reality, just due to my limited athletic skills. So the next best thing I thought would be to somehow get a job in sports. I was a student at USC, and they had a curriculum specifically designed to prepare students for careers in sports. And when I found out about that program, I applied for it and I got in. My area of emphasis of study was public relations. And as part of the curriculum, USC actually placed you in an internship with a sports organization. And I did that for a semester at the arena that was closest to campus, facility that was the sports arena. It's no longer there, but USC basketball used to play there. And ironically, when the Lakers first moved to Los Angeles in 1960, the Lakers played at the sports arena. So I did that internship for a semester. I got my university credit. And then the advisor at USC who oversaw the internship program asked me if I would like to continue an internship, but this time it would be at the Forum. And she prefaced it by saying, I got to tell you, you're not going to get a university credit. You're not going to get paid, and it's strictly volunteer. So it's entirely optional whether you want to do it or not. And I couldn't even believe I was being offered the opportunity, let alone not receiving any compensation. That was the least thing on my mind. I was just thinking to myself, wow, I'm going to be walking the same hallways as Jerry West, my childhood idol. So I immediately said, yes, I'd love to do that. And that's how I got started with the organization.
Is there anything,
Yeah, I'm sure we would all like to work for our dream organization.
of
I'm
course.
sorry, say that again?
What I was gonna say is, so did you formally major in business in college then?
The sports information curriculum at USC was actually in the School of Journalism. And within the program, you could select 3 areas of study to emphasize on. And it was print journalism, so to become a sports writer, broadcast journalism to become a broadcaster, and then public relations, which was to learn about how to promote sports. And I chose public relations.
Is the program still around today? Because Paul and I are both in journalism, and I'm not speaking for Paul, but at least I would probably like to do something like that in the future.
Actually, the program's been disbanded. Funny story, Will Ferrell actually gave a commencement speech at USC, and it's hilarious. If you get the time, go on YouTube and look it up and watch it. And I didn't know it until the commencement speech, but Will Ferrell was actually a sports information major at USC, the same major I took. And he says something to the along the lines that it was a curriculum so arduous that they decided to disband the program entirely. So that got a big chuckle. But no, that program no longer exists. I wish it still did.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good program.
It does. It does, indeed.
All right, so now obviously, okay, Curran.
No, you can go.
We're on a little bit of a delay here. That's why we keep overlapping, talking.
No worries, guys.
So obviously you had to work your way up in the Lakers. How were you able to work your way up within the organization to get your?
Sure. So I obviously took the internship very seriously. I put all my heart and energy into it the time I was there. And initially I was just going in a couple of afternoons a week and helping out in the public relations department. And then I was approached and I was asked if I'd be available to work game nights for the Lakers. And they installed what was called an out-of-town scoreboard panel, where on each end of the arena, they had the scores of other games around the NBA on that particular night. And they needed somebody to input the scores into the computer that was displayed out in the arena. And so obviously I jumped at that opportunity. I got to work game nights, and the following semester, I was still a student, and they said, we still like you to work game nights, but we need somebody to oversee the Laker girls on game night. Would you be available to do that? And I said, yeah, I think I can make that work. So they hired me for that job. And then I graduated in December. So I was a mid-year graduate, and I really didn't know what I was going to do after I graduated for full-time work. But good timing is everything. A woman who was the director of public relations for special events at the Forum quit and they needed to fill her position. And I was going to be available because I was graduating. So they offered me the job and I took it. And so I worked in the public relations department for the Forum for several years before the gentleman who ran the corporate partnerships department approached me and asked me if I would go to work for his department. And I made the move because my daytime job really comprised of almost everything but the Lakers. I was still working game nights for the Lakers. But making the move to corporate partnerships meant I would be spending most of my work during the day on the Lakers. And that was the one thing I was most passionate about. So I made that move and I stayed with the department for the rest of my career with the organization.
Okay, I can't tell if Paul's talking, but for the 38 years you worked for the team, what was what in your opinion was your greatest contribution to the organization?
So there's a few that I'm really proud of. Probably the one that personally stands out for me. A gentleman by the name of Bill Sharman was the head coach of the Lakers when they won their first championship in Los Angeles in 1972. Bill Sharman was a great basketball player in his own right. He played a number of seasons for the Boston Celtics in the 50s. He won 4 championships with the Celtics. And he, when the NBA turned 50 in 1996, the NBA named its top 50 greatest players of all time. And Bill Sharman was one of those players. So just to put it in perspective, what a phenomenal athlete he was. He went into coaching and he actually won championships in 3 different leagues. He instituted the day of game shoot around, which still exists today, but he started that in 1972. When he coached the Lakers that season, the team won 69 games. And at the time that was a record for the season, 69-13. And he also coached the team to the longest winning streak in NBA history. And that streak still exists today. And so I was talking to Bill one day and I asked him, I said, I know you're in the Hall of Fame as a player, but are you in the Hall of Fame as a coach? And he said, no. And he went on to tell me that he felt he was very deserving. He didn't need to tell me that. I knew he belonged in the Hall of Fame as a coach. And so I told Bill, I'm going to start a drive and hopefully we'll get you in the Hall of Fame. And so the next day I did start that drive. I reached out to a number of individuals. We submitted all the paperwork to the NBA Hall of Fame. Well, actually it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. And not that year, but the year after, he actually did get inducted into the Hall of Fame as a coach. Wow. So realizing that I had a role in getting that drive started, and it actually ended up in him getting inducted in the Hall of Fame, is of great personal pride to me. The other 2 things I'm really proud of is if you've ever been to a Lakers game, we have a promotion where if the Lakers win and hold their opponent under 100 points, everybody in the arena gets 2 free tacos. And during those games, when it looks like that promotion is going to take place, the fans chant, "We want tacos." And it's become very popular. It's become part of Lakers lore. And the promotion still, we introduced the promotion, I want to say in 2008. It's still going today, and it's still as popular as ever. Wow. So I'm really happy, very proud of the role I played in that. And then lastly, I did play a role in the Lakers getting the Wish jersey patch on their uniforms. And that is the biggest corporate partnership the Lakers have ever had in terms of dollars and commitments. You may have noticed this season, they actually have shopping underneath the Wish logo. So it says Wish Shopping. First preseason, it just said Wish. But this year, they committed to another partnership with the Lakers because originally it was a 3-season deal. And then this year they have Wish Shopping. And if you saw the game last night too, Wish Shopping is actually on the court in front of the player benches. So they're a very prominent sponsor with the league or with the team.
Yeah, I actually noticed that, the shopping, now that you're mentioning it. I realized why it looked kind of off yesterday. I'm like, it looks different. Anyway, as a fan of the Lakers and as someone being around the organization for so long, who, in your opinion, is the greatest Laker of all time?
That is such a tough question. There's not any one player I can point out and say he's the one. But I would say, I'm going to say a number of players, so bear with me. Jerry West immediately comes to mind, not only for the great player he was, but for the great executive he was as well. Under his guidance and Bill Sharman's, the Lakers won 5 championships during the 80s, during the Showtime era. Jerry West was very instrumental in acquiring Shaquille O'Neal to join the Lakers. He was very instrumental in drafting Kobe Bryant. So really, he played a hand in the following 5 championships that the Lakers won in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2009, 2010. So you can say that Jerry West was directly involved in 11 Laker championships. The other player I would say would be Magic Johnson, probably the most entertaining player I've ever watched play basketball. He was the ultimate showman with the Showtime Lakers. The most spectacular passes I've ever seen. Great leader, very charismatic, always had a smile on his face. And certainly he belongs in that category. I would also have to put Kobe Bryant up there. Obviously, he won 5 championships with the NBA and such an amazing player in his own right. And again, a player who is just spectacular to watch. And then, of course, LeBron James, who may go down as the greatest ever when all is said and done. The season he put in last year was remarkable, arguably one of his best seasons ever. And I believe he just turned 38. And for him to be accomplishing what he's doing this many years into the league and at his age is just remarkable. And I feel like there's a good potential for more championships to be won with LeBron James on the team.
So I know you just you briefly touched upon it for a second, but you talked about the Showtime Lakers. Obviously, you worked the game times during when they were so dominant. Were they, do you think, the greatest ever Laker team you've ever watched?
I would say so, just because the nucleus of that team stayed together during those 5 NBA championships. There was another nucleus, of course, during the 3-peat teams in the early 2000s. But those same players, except for Kobe and Derek Fisher, those were the only 2 players that carried on in 2009, 2010. So I would say that Showtime team was pretty spectacular. Having won 5 championships in, I believe, an 8-year period is pretty remarkable.
Did you have any relationships, personally, with? I know you talked about Bill Sharman, but any of the other Lakers players or coaches?
Well, I did travel with the team quite a bit in the 80s. And when you do travel with the team, you get to know them a little bit more on a personal level. The other thing is that the guys who played during that era were the same age as me. And so because we grew up together, we experienced a lot of the same things at the same time. So we had more in common. And so, the guys who made up that team, and I'm talking mainly about James Worthy, Michael Cooper, Kurt Rambis, Irvin Johnson to a degree. I got to know those players, and Byron Scott. I got to know those players a little bit more than just, coworker to coworker. I would say we were on very friendly terms.
That's amazing being able to know those guys. But I know for a lot of people my age and even older a little bit, growing up watching Kobe, fantastic player, very sad what happened earlier this year. Now losing late great Kobe Bryant. Who yourself have any personal experiences with Kobe or know of any stories of Kobe that you've heard from other people within the organization that you'd want to share?
Sure. So I actually have one story that's a great story. And again, another Laker-related moment I'm really proud of. So I was working with a sponsor here in Southern California. I don't think they're worldwide. I don't know if they're or nationwide. I'm not sure they're your area. It's Carl's Jr.
Oh, I know Carl's Jr. and Hardee's. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So they had a yearly promotion as part of their sponsorship. For 2 seasons in a row, we did bobbleheads. And the 3rd season, we pretty much ran out of players for the bobbleheads because we had done them the previous 2 seasons. And that promotion kind of ran its course. And so we approached Kobe and Jerry West and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar about a poster. And when we approached Kobe on the idea, he heard out our concept for the promotion and what the poster was going to look like. And he actually came up with something entirely different. And I've actually got it here. I'll share it with you guys. But this is the design he came up with.
Great.
And so basically what he said, and he told the guy from Carl's Jr. that I was working with on the project, and we were on a conference call with him. And he said, hey guys, all due respect, the poster promotion idea you came up with has been done a million times. It's kind of a tired idea. And I have a different idea. And he said, when you look at the 3 players, Jerry West, Will Chamberlain, and myself, our first years as a Laker, we had a very down year. In fact, they had a losing record. And when Kobe was talking about his year, he was talking about the year after Shaq left. So that was the beginning of the Kobe era and Kobe's team, so to speak. And he said, so the 3 of us have that in common. So here's my idea. Get a picture of Jerry West, big headshot, put his losing record underneath him. Get a headshot of Kareem, same thing, put his losing record underneath him, and then put a picture of me and my losing record from that season, and then come up with a saying. And we eventually came up with they who endure conquer. And that was Kobe's idea from start to finish. And years later, I overheard him talking to Rob Pelinka, and he said that was his first storytelling project. And after he retired as a player, he went into the storytelling business, and he actually had a short story that he won an Academy Award for. But to think that his first storytelling concept and project actually was this poster that we worked on really blew me away. So to work with Kobe on that particular project was phenomenal.
I see you have
That's
the
amazing.
Yeah, that's great. That's incredible. I see you have like a Blain Skinner consulting above your head. My question that leads me to my question: what are you up to now after you're out of the organization?
Sure. So after 38 seasons with the Lakers and my entire adult life only knowing one thing, and that was to wake up on a work day and go to work for the Bus family, I really didn't know what I was going to do after I left the organization. I reached out to a number of people that I really respect in the industry, and I asked them for advice. And the one common theme was that I should go into consulting. And consulting is kind of a nebulous term, right? It's like, I've heard that term before, but what is it? But basically, what I have found it to be for me is I'm more or less a corporate matchmaker. So I have a lot of relationships with people in the industry, and I have relationships with companies that have a product or service. And so what basically I do is I introduce the two companies to each other. And so that is what I found consulting means to me. And so I started Blain Skinner Consulting earlier this year, and I'm really glad I did. It's been very fulfilling, and I'm really looking forward to continuing with consulting.
So now with you being obviously working with the Lakers with advertising in the past and now with consulting, what do you see for the future of the profession and the industry?
I see it continuing to evolve over my lifetime. The industry has grown so much, and with the advancement in technology, there's just so many different opportunities for companies to promote their brand, their service, their products digitally. And I see that continuing. And in this COVID time, we've really had to be much more creative, especially sports teams. Oftentimes, advertisers are really trying to capture the attention of the attendee that's at the game. And right now, that's not available. There's no fans in most of the stadiums and arenas in the country. So it's just become much more of a challenge, and it's required teams to become much more innovative on how do we reach those fans that normally would be exposed to our branding during a game. So I've seen a lot of creative things online, and I see that continuing. But just over a period of time, the amount of interest in sports just continues to grow. When I first started with the organization, the Lakers were very well known in the United States, obviously, but not so much overseas. But over the course of time, games started to be broadcast in other countries, and we just saw the popularity in the Lakers grow over the years. In fact, that's one of the reasons why Wish decided to become a sponsor with the Lakers. So 2/3 of Wish's customers are outside the United States. But because the Lakers are such a global brand and globally so popular, I believe that I've got data that shows that the Lakers are the 4th most popular sports brand in the world. That's the reason why one of the reasons why Wish decided to sponsor the Lakers. So I just see the fan base continuing to grow, and basketball as a sport is increasing in popularity all the time as well. So I just see things continuing to grow and more fans continuing to develop.
What kind of advice would you have for kids like Paul, I, or hundreds of other sports fans who kind of want to get into this field in the future?
Sure. Well, what you're doing right now is pretty good. Growing an audience that is watching your content. And so I applaud you for doing that. I would also suggest you get as much experience as possible. So volunteering for sports events in your areas and seeking out any opportunities to actually work in sports in some capacity. And then the other thing I would say would be networking. So if you're not on LinkedIn already, I would highly recommend that you be on LinkedIn and that you have a very professional looking profile. And then I would reach out to as many people as possible to be connected. The one thing I've learned in all my years is you can't do anything by yourself. You need the help of others to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve. And the more people you know and the more people you're connected to, the more opportunities you'll have. So I highly recommend reaching out to people on LinkedIn and asking for a connection and developing as many contacts as you possibly can.
Yeah, it's great advice. One more question I got to ask you as an NBA fan, as a Laker fan, what do you see the Lakers doing this year? Repeating as champions? How far do you see them going?
Well, number one, everybody has to stay healthy.
That's right.
I've always said the two teams that get to the NBA finals, by and large, right, to get to that level, to get to the two last teams standing, you're probably both pretty good teams, pretty equal. And invariably, it seems like the team that has the least injuries ultimately wins. So
Sure.
In the bubble this past season, the Lakers were by and large pretty healthy. They didn't have any major player with any kind of major injury that kept them from playing. So that's the most important thing. And then I feel like this Laker team has a great chance to repeat. Anthony Davis is still developing as a player and getting better and better. And he's already one of the best players in the NBA. So that's a scary thought in its own right. LeBron, as I mentioned earlier, is playing at a very top level. And it still amazes me he's so dominant at his age and for the number of years he's played in the league. And then during the offseason, with all due respect to the other players that were on the team and are no longer on the team, I feel like we really, I feel like the Lakers upgraded and almost at every position. So I actually think this team, on paper at least, is a stronger team than the team that just won the championship. So I expect them to win the championship. And again, they got to stay healthy. That's it. It all comes down to that.
I would definitely agree with the point you just made about the Lakers being, in my opinion, a better team on paper this year than last year. But do you have anything else, Paul?
I just want to say thank you for joining us. It means a lot for you to come on the show, give us some advice, tell us some things. Obviously, a great story about Kobe and everything you said. So thank you.
Again, I appreciate you guys inviting me on. I'm flattered, and I really applaud that you've got a passion for sports and that you're using this vehicle to display that passion. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you indeed. Yeah, if you have anything else to say, I mean, you can say it now. I'll let you give your piece, or else I'm just going to end the thing then.
All I can say is continue what you're doing. I'm going to continue watching you guys, and this has been fun. So thank you again for inviting me.
Yep. As always, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Want to send them off?
Yep. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, like, subscribe, comment on the Wessex Wire. Check out the Instagram at the Wessex Wire, and check out the website at thewessexwire.com for more sports coverage. Paul, end us off with a bang. Paul.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. And don't forget that LeBron James is the greatest player of all time.